This is the North Star Takes podcast with Bailey Pulicki and Jacob Liberta. You can find all our videos here in our YouTube channel. So if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And feel free to give this video a like, especially if you're a Vikings fan, because we're going to be talking some Minnesota Vikings post-bye week expectations today. Vikings went into the bye at 3-3, winners of two straight games, granted against two pretty bad teams, as it's kind of stacking up here in the NFC with the Lions and the Panthers, which in the NFL, you'll take a win any way you can get them, but certainly the Vikings would like to show that they're capable of playing a lot better than what they have, especially given the talent on this team. I just think they're capable of playing so much better than what we've seen out of them so far this year. And I would argue the best they played really was the Seattle game or maybe even the Arizona game, even though they lost. But then kind of coming out of that Seattle game, it's been ugly ever since. So I guess, what are your expectations coming out of the bye week here? We have four really tough games. This is probably our toughest stretch of the season with the Cowboys, Ravens, Chargers, and Packers. What are you expecting from this team out of the bye in terms of wins and losses in these next four games and how that'll kind of set them up for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'm expecting some more ebbs and flows as any NFL season goes, but especially with this team and the roller coaster we've been on through the first six games, I expect that to continue where we have some great highs where we look like we can play with anybody in the league, but then we're going to have some tremendous lows that feel like we should just hit the reset button and tank and fire everybody. But that's what I foresee coming, really. I mean, I think there's going to be some good games and some not so good games, but as far as looking at the near future and these first four out of the bye, for me to be satisfied with where we're going, I think we got to at least split them and go 2-2. I think I can live with that. Getting to 5-5s, got to be the goal at least. If you should be shooting for more, but 5-5 is going to be bare minimum because then I think you're sitting pretty good in this NFC the way it's shaping up. Because I think there's 5 teams that are locks for the playoffs in this NFC, but after that, I think it's very top heavy and it's just a significant drop off because I think there's at least a team from every division that's a lock, from the 5-1 Cowboys to the now 6-1 Packers to the 6-1 Buccaneers, and then you got the Rams and Cardinals in the West. The undefeated Cardinals, and then the Rams look as good as anybody. So I think those teams should all be in it at the end. But after that, it gets a little bit shakier. I don't think anybody in the East beyond the Cowboys is any good, and I don't think they stand a chance. They're all sitting at 2-5 currently. And then in our division, I think obviously the Lions are already out of it. And then you got the Bears, who certainly did not play their best football against the Buccaneers today. So I don't see that happening either, really, unless it really comes down to those head-to-head matchups with the Vikes and Bears. And then you go down to the South. I understand that the Panthers are free-falling, and I don't see them getting into the playoffs anymore. I think Darnold is just reverting back to his old form. And then you got the Falcons at 3-3, although I don't think that's legit. I think they've won games against bad teams. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain a 500 record. And then the Saints, I think that's probably the biggest question mark there. I think they could elevate, but at the same time, they're losing games to teams like the Giants at home. That's unacceptable. But then you go out west. I expected the Seahawks to be a lot better, although we did beat the Seahawks even with Russell Wilson, but now Wilson's out for a while. Then with Geno Smith in there, it's going to be a gong show. And then you go even beyond that, you got the 49ers that they've been very shaky so far too, and they've had a lot of injuries. So I don't know if they'll be around at the end either. So really, just by virtue of elimination and just maybe the Vikings playing 500 football, I think that'll probably get them in the way it's looking. So I think it's crucial to go 2-2 these first four out of the bye, and more likely your two most favorable games are probably the ones at home, just with the way this team is playing the Cowboys at the front end on Sunday Night Football right out of the bye, and then on the back end playing the Packers to wrap up that 4-game stretch at home. So it's probably the two most winnable games anyway you can get them, whatever two of those four, preferably the conference games, which are the home games. But I mean, anyway you can get them. 500 record, I think it'll probably do us a lot more good than it would in most years. So I think that's got to be the goal. What are you thinking, Bailey?
Yeah, I agree with you. Granted, I need to clarify my expectations for this team are much higher. Like, I don't want them to just skate by or anything. But I'm with you. 2-2 in this stretch would be nice. 3-1 would be optimal. That would be fantastic. But that's a lot to expect, especially with two really tough road games against two of the best teams in the AFC. Honestly,
going coast to coast,
So I think Dallas is definitely a good opportunity to win a game. I mean, the Cowboys have a great offense, but their defense is still suspect. Dak suffered a calf injury, so it's not even for sure he's going to play Sunday. Like, there's a lot of time between now and then, but
Still,
he had a calf strain. He was in a walking boot after their last game. They had a bye week to recover, but we'll see. We'll see if he's ready to go. I don't know. We're going to be without Pat P, obviously, so if they're without Dak, that helps us in that regard quite a bit.
Yes.
So yeah, I think Dallas is definitely a winnable game. It's prime time, so obviously that's always sketchy with this team. So yeah, beat Dallas because the next two games are going to be really hard, and I wouldn't expect us to necessarily win either of those games. The Ravens, it's going to be really interesting because it's our first time playing against Lamar Jackson, and he's just a wild card. I mean, he's the quickest quarterback in the league. I have a really tough time envisioning our defense being able to contain him at all. So I think that could be an ugly game, honestly. It might have to be a shootout, which Ravens defense isn't fantastic this year either. So it could definitely turn into a shootout. I think our offense could put up points on them, but
yeah, I think so too.
Go ahead.
With the way our run defense is, it's very suspect.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem is the run defense is our weakness. And then the Chargers, obviously, they're a high-flying offense. Justin Herbert's fantastic, and we're still going to be without Patrick Peterson for that game, so that's going to be tough. And then Packers at home, which it's looking more and more like the Packers are going to win this division again. They're 6-1. We're only 2 games behind them in the loss column at 3-3. But I really think you have to beat the Packers twice to have any shot at this division because they're kind of cleaning up on some of these teams. They have the Chiefs coming up, and the Chiefs have looked horrible. Remains to be seen. I guess they play the Cardinals Thursday night. If they can somehow beat the Cardinals, then I would give us pretty much no shot of winning the division because the Packers got to start dropping some games here because the Vikings aren't going to win 11 or 12 games. Like the most I think we would win is 10. We're probably going to end up at 9, and you're not going to win the division at 9 games. But especially the Packers are already at 6 wins. So
yeah.
I would say, yeah, you'd have to get to 10 wins. You'd have to beat the Packers twice, and we need the Packers to start dropping some other games here too. But they're looking really good, honestly. And your 5 teams that were locks, I agree with you completely. I think those teams for sure are going to make the playoffs, especially with the way the NFC is starting to separate. And I just think all 5 of those teams are kind of in their own class. You can maybe put like the Bucks just a peg ahead of everyone else. I know the Cardinals are undefeated, but I'm still not 100% a believer in the Cardinals. I kind of need to see more to believe it, but especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I like if the Vikings had to play any of those 5 teams in the playoffs, which they will if they make the playoffs, I'll be extremely concerned because it'll be a road game, obviously against a very good team. All of them have good offenses. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Maybe Dallas would be the least scary of the bunch, but yeah. And then when it comes to like the wild card race, the Rams for sure. The Rams or Cardinals, whoever doesn't win that division. And then the Lions are out of it. The Bears, I think the Bears looked really bad against the Bucs. They got blown out. Justin Fields looks like he's seeing ghosts. I don't know how Matt Nagy still has a job. They're a complete disaster.
Oh my gosh.
And their schedule only gets harder coming up here too. I heard them talking on the broadcast, so they have a tough 4 or 5 week schedule coming up here as well, like the Vikings do. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. They're already at 4 losses. And then, yeah, in the NFC South, I mean, the NFC East is donezo already. Everyone's 2-5. All those teams are terrible.
Yep.
Besides Dallas. So then, yeah, it really comes down to the Vikings, the Saints, and the Falcons, and maybe the 49ers. I still think the 49ers could be in there as well. And the Falcons are at 3-3, but I think they'll fall off. They're just not a very good team. They almost blew it to the Dolphins today, and the Dolphins are really bad this year. So Falcons aren't for real. Don't get that twisted. The Saints, I think the Saints and 49ers will kind of battle it out for that last spot, honestly, because the 49ers obviously have to play in their own division, which is extremely hard. And then, yeah, the Saints are just kind of a weird – they seem just kind of like a 500 team. I don't know. They're not horrible, but they're not great either. So,
yeah,
I really like
win that many games?
No.
Exactly. You were saying though?
I was going to say I really like our chances, honestly, to make it as a wild card. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking at how tough the schedule was, and I'm like, I just don't see it. But then a couple of weeks later, you see how horrible the rest of the NFC is doing, and all of a sudden there's a path. But like I've said before, being a wild card still doesn't excite me just because of how difficult the path is once you get there, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it doesn't happen very often where wild card teams make Super Bowl runs. Obviously, last year the Bucs did it, but I mean, granted, I feel like that's in its own grouping just because you got Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. So
Yep.
I think that's a different story. And then kind of go back thinking about another wild card team that made a run. It was the Packers in 2010, but again, that's Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, well, at that point, then do you think if the Vikings have a legitimate shot, are you like basically grouping Kirk Cousins with guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers who can win 3 in a row on the road to get to the Super Bowl? I don't know. I'm not willing to die on that hill, but I mean, you do you. But
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just winning 3 games on the road against good teams. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, and basically what it would come down to is as a fan base, are we happy with the team just making the playoffs? Because I would give them a less than 2% chance of making it to the Super Bowl if they're a 6 or 7 seed and they have to play the Bucks or the Packers or somebody. You know, like I wouldn't like those odds at all.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, personally for me, I think the biggest mistake that they could possibly do is, we made the playoffs, we'll run it back again next year. Because we've been seeing the same thing over and over here. Oh, we make the playoffs one year, we miss it the next. And it flip-flops every year under Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sick of seeing the same old thing. You know, hopefully I'm wrong and the Vikings can just come out and on fire here and somehow charge back, beat the Packers twice and find a way to win this division. Because then all bets are off. If we can win the division and get a home playoff game, I'm all in. But wild card wise, I hate our chances from there, and I just think the rest of the NFC is way too good, honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about the Vikings, as everybody knows. But I almost feel like through 7 weeks here, even though we didn't even play today, and we're not that far out of it statistically, or really when you look at it, 2 losses out, I already think the division's wrapped up. I just can't see after having back-to-back 13-3 seasons for the Packers, even if we'd have won, or even if we would win the 2 games in our head-to-head matchups, I can't see them losing more than like 5 games this year. And at that point, that means we would also have to win 12 games in our own right. And I don't really see a pathway to 12 wins here because we would have to go, I think, what would that be, 9-2 the rest of the way?
Yep. That's
pretty tough to see with the schedule we got. So I am afraid to say it, but I'm already reporting that the Packers are winning this division.
That's the problem. Like, they should have lost to the San Francisco 49ers.
They should have lost against the Bengals.
Oh. Yeah, like a couple games where things just completely broke their way, which, you know, classic Packers fashion. Even today against the Washington football team, like Washington just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Heineke diving short of the goal line, you know, fumbles everywhere. It's just unbelievable. But the Packers are good. Like, Aaron Rodgers is really good. I think Matt LaFleur is a good coach. Obviously, he's doing something right if they're having his record with them is insane. I think he's like 30-5 or something like that.
I think 32-7. Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. So I don't know. Still, like that's a ridiculous amount of wins because that's better than 800 winning percentage. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think the division's a wrap, and we're gonna be another wild card team. It's gonna be like 2019. Maybe we can steal one. I don't know, but do you envision us making any somewhat big trades here before the trade deadline?
No, I don't think we're going to see anything of significance. I think we're in win now mode for our head coach. So if anything, it would be us trading to add. But at the same time, I don't really know where we would add to this roster. Maybe at corner with the Pat P injury. But at the same time, I don't know if Zim feels pretty good about the guys we already have because he seems to go to bat for a guy like Bashad at the podium. So I mean, if he's confident in Bashad, who would he not be confident in our cornerback room then? So I think at this point, I think this team is what it is, and we're going to see what happens down the stretch here post-bye week.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, they definitely aren't going to trade away people.
No.
So, yeah, maybe they would trade for somebody, but like people keep floating out like Xavier Howard because he wanted to get traded before the season and the Dolphins are a disaster.
That'd be kind of fun.
And it would be fun, but like he's making a ton of money. The guy is injury prone. And it would be one of those trades I think that would blow up in our face because we'd have to trade probably at least a 3rd round pick. People are saying I think it could be more. Yeah. And then you bring him in. He has to learn a new scheme. Like, I don't know. I think that's a lot to ask of a player to come in mid-season and, you know, contribute like that right away, especially for a team that like realistically is not a Super Bowl contending team in my mind. So I just say ride it up because you don't want to hurt yourself for future years as well because that just seems what we keep doing here, like the Ngakoue trade. You know, We traded a second for him. We traded him for a third. So like we lost a round in value there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just trades like that. We got Herndon for a 4th-round pick, which, 4th-round picks are still pretty valuable in the NFL. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the trades we've made recently. So I'd like us to just kind of stand pat and go with what we have.
Yeah, I agree. I think our trade history recently looks pretty questionable, but at the same time, I guess that's probably where I differ a little bit. I think any picks we're trading from day 3 of the draft, I'm not really too concerned about, to be honest. Like 4th-round picks, I think that's probably my cutoff line where I do like 4th-round picks, but anything after that, I'm willing to part with. And even 4th-round picks, like it's very fringe for me. I don't really care that much, but at the same time, you can get great value in these later rounds. Like we've had draft picks that have worked out for us in the past that if we were trading all these late round picks away, that we'd never have. Guys like, for instance, Stephon Diggs probably is the most namely one, just because we took him in the 5th round and he turned into a superstar in this league and top 5 receiver. And then now I'd say another receiver is KJ Osborne. Took him in the 5th round. He looks pretty dang good. So there is something to be said about taking your chances there too.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't want us to keep having like a narrow focus on just this season because the odds are this team is wild card at best. Maybe wins one playoff game if they're hot or something, or if they have a lucky game.
Odds would favor that, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I just want us to look ahead to next season because like if Aaron Rodgers leaves the Packers and Justin Fields looks horrific right now, who knows how the rest of the season is going to shape out, but there's going to be changes in Chicago, I'm sure. Matt Nagy's going to be out. Maybe the GM's going to be out too.
Yeah.
The Lions are a disaster, and they're in a full-on rebuild. Like, they're not going to be good next year. Like, this team has a chance to be good again next year as long as they don't screw themselves trying to win this year, So I don't want us to lose sight of that long-term picture because, like, I know we say this every year, like, oh, if this goes right and this goes right, the Vikings are going to win the division. And we were coming into this season thinking the Vikings would maybe win the division. But I truly think, like, if this is it for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't win the division next year.
Yeah, I think there'd be no excuses at that point. And the only issue is that all of us that are fans, we're looking at the big picture and looking beyond the season because we want to build a sustainable winner. But the problem is that Zim is literally coaching for his job this year. So, and even Rick Spielman might be managing the roster for his job this year too, because I don't know what the job security is like because I don't think anybody would truly know how safe Rick is or not, except for those that are in the building behind closed doors. But I think both of those guys are very focused on this season because if the season is a disaster, then it doesn't matter what the Vikings are up to beyond this year. So I think that's probably the disconnect there. And you just got to hope as a fan that they don't sacrifice too much of the future for trying to win now when the odds certainly don't favor you.
Exactly. And that's just kind of being aware as well. Like I know Zimmer is, like you said, they are potentially, trying to protect their jobs, stuff like that. But especially a guy like Spielman, where I think the Wolves really like him.
Yeah.
He's probably safe, especially if they make the playoffs. Like he shouldn't be having that kind of attitude. Like he needs to cultivate this roster for the future. And another kind of topic too is like Kellen Mond obviously hasn't contributed whatsoever. We didn't expect him to.
No.
But all these other rookie quarterbacks, besides Mac Jones in New England, that have played pretty much right away have looked pretty dang bad. Like even Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked good. Granted, the Jags are a disaster.
Yep.
Zach Wilson looks like a bust. Justin Fields looks horrible, but the Bears are also a mess. I'm kind of thinking it's almost a good thing. Mond is a 3rd-round pick. He's probably in a different class than these other quarterbacks, but I'm thinking it's a good thing that we decided to give him just a full-on redshirt year, let him learn the NFL, learn how to study tape, learn from Kirk Cousins, who's having the best season of his career so far.
Yeah.
Like I think these are all important things for his long-term development.
Yeah, for sure. And I like to think that we have steady infrastructure for Mond to really grow in. I think obviously Kirk's been a quarterback in this league for how long now, and he's a good one at that. So I think that can only help him. And then I think as far as the talent on this offense, I think that also that would help him if he does have to play. But even just in practice, working with guys that are really tops in the league at their position. So I think that helps too. And just the Vikings are a stable organization compared to like some of these other ones where these 1st-round picks aren't working out. But that's part of the reason why these organizations are unstable, though, is because they haven't been able to get the quarterback position right. And until they do, then it's going to be kind of rough. So I think that's the results that we're seeing right now. So I think with Mond, I think it is good that we are just grooming them behind the scenes and not really pressing them into action. Otherwise, I think you'd probably get more of the same results as these first rounders are having this year. And at the same time, I think there's still potential there beyond this year, and he doesn't have to feel rushed because he's not a first round pick either.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe we get in a situation where we have a playoff spot locked up. We can see him in the last week of the season.
That would be ideal.
Yeah, that would be ideal, but we'll have to see it when it gets to that point. Because it would be nice going into next year if, like, hey, if we can move off Kirk Cousins and his $45 million cap hit, trade him for maybe a first-round pick because some team is desperate enough.
Yes.
Then if Kellen Mond's good enough, you have a ton of money, you have an extra first-round pick. Like, you can do a lot to improve this roster very quickly.
Yes, 100%. I think that's the most appealing idea there. I think that's huge to get all that money out the books and be able to sign really good free agents, and then also adding an extra first rounder never hurt anybody. So yeah, I think that's big too.
Yeah, so these are all hypotheticals, obviously, but it's stuff to think about as the season goes on because it's becoming more and more apparent there's some really good teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the Vikings can stack up with them as of now. So
yeah. Well, I think they can. It's just playing your best football at the end is my biggest thing.
Yeah, I think the main problem with the Vikings is they pretty much have to play a perfect game.
They kind of do. It feels like
some of these really good teams. And that's what it feels like against the Packers a lot. Like we have to play a perfect game.
Sure.
And that's annoying. Like we should be able to play an ugly style game and still scrap for a win, like, I don't know. And that seems to be what we do against bad teams because we play down to our competition. But who knows? We'll see how the rest of the season shakes out here. But that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I said before, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like so we can reach other Minnesota Vikings fans as well. Feel free to give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. And leave your comments below what you're expecting from the Vikings post-bye week. If you think they can make a playoff push here, maybe a division push, which that'd be a gutsy prediction, that's for sure. But
absolutely.
Yeah, leave your predictions below, and we'll definitely respond to them as well. So thanks for watching.